Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Punch, Kick, Choke Chat. My name is Sean Benson. I'm one of your hosts. We're back after a week when we did one of our shorts, which we always love making for you and putting out. But we're so happy to be here live with you. And I'm so happy to be chatting with Sensei Wilfreed Seerattan. And we're going to jump right in with a question for him. Sensei, we were talking just before we started rolling the cameras, just about different people, different respect, how some people will meet people from other organizations and those people will welcome them the way we have with one another. And it's a question that we are going to end up asking everybody who's hosting tonight, but I want to start with you. What is it that would make a martial artist respected, not just within their dojo, but within the community of other martial artists, such that they would want to become a part, or at the very least, in relationship with that person's club?
I have to go back to the philosophy of karate and where it comes from, and the Zen philosophy, because that's where my karate comes from, and where our karate comes from. So people who tend to hold this strong philosophy in mind about respecting others and persevering and endeavoring in what you do, I think that is, it doesn't matter what style you belong to, but if you have this respect for each other in those ways, I think that would make a great friend in the martial arts. So it's with philosophy. All of my belief is in the philosophy of karate and where it comes from, and even the way I teach, it's all starts with philosophy.
I love that, and the idea that the philosophy is where you would connect with someone, even if the physical is different. What is the philosophies? Like what is what you consider your root, and would you'd see in someone else that would make you go, I want to connect with that?
Well, it's not about winning or losing, but about perfection of character. That's the strongest philosophy that I hold. And a lot of I see a lot of people when they compete. I mean, I compete a lot, but I don't compete to win, or I don't compete, think about losing when I'm competing. My philosophy is how to build my character better by competing. And when I teach the same philosophy. And when I meet people who embodies the same philosophy, I connect very, very strongly with them. So it doesn't really matter where where the person is from or what style they do. If they embody that philosophy of endeavoring and training and respecting each other, I'm on board with that.
Thank you, Sensei. Sensei Suino, let's jump to you on this one. What is it that you think would make somebody a respected member outside of their dojo, such that other people might want to form community with them? Turn your mic on, Sensei, please. We're begging to send. Okay, Sensei Tofan, let's go to you. What do you think it is that would make somebody a respected member of a community?
Well, the first thing that always attracts me to somebody is their skill level. Like, obviously you see something they do. Like, so if I can remember the first time I saw Sensei Seerattan do Goju Shiho Dai, right? And I just was blown away. So you're like, wow. Like, so as a martial artist, I think for me, you're always attracted first to some good martial arts when you don't know somebody. Sensei Canispo would be another one. I remember Sensei Legacy and I standing in this smaller tournament and him going out and doing Bo, and Sensei Legacy going, go get that guy and bring him over here. We want to talk to him, right? So I think it's always skill. Then for me personally, the actions and the words have to align. So you're looking for somebody who they act a certain way and their words line up with that, or they say certain things and then their actions line up with that. And I guess what I'm saying there is their character is true and genuine. And I guess that then once you get to know them, they're just a genuine person. Like, you can trust them, you enjoy training with them, you want to see more of what they got, and you want to hear more of what they have to say, which is why we have Sensei Seerattan here tonight.
Amen. Checks every box. Hanshi Legacy, what about you? What makes somebody a respected member of a community, aside from whatever they're doing in their dojo with their own students?
I think really it's everybody's true to their art. You can tell when a person tries to better himself or herself, and they train hard, and I really ask for nothing, but they accept everything as a challenge and try to overcome that. Basically, I think it's a bit different nowadays than it was before. Everybody was fighting for her position, but the arts that we do are physically different, but internally we all grow the same. That's what I think Sensei Seerattan was saying, that, you know, once you crash through that physical difference and you look at every good martial artist, they grow the same. So you recognize that internally about the person. So, you know, it's you have to look a bit deeper at everybody. A lot of people talk, I'm this, I did that, or did that, but you know, you can recognize a good martial artist. He just puts his head down and trains, and you can tell by the way they do kata, by the way they handle themselves. I think character.
Thank you, Hanshi. And Sensei Suino, if you're cool, we'll come back to you for what would make somebody a worthwhile member of a community outside of their dojo, a community of martial artists. What would make them respected?
Well, if they don't die when they drink their sparkling water, that probably is 1 point in their favor. Yeah, I like what Hachi Legacy said. Character is really important. You know, I've got 200 people at my dojo, wonderful people. But there are handful of people that I really gravitate to, and it's character, right? They're consistent, they have integrity, and they're just fun to be around. Like, not fun in the crazy sense. You know, there was a time in my 20s and 30s where I thought it was fun to be around people that were a little reckless. But now I like people that are solid, consistent human beings that do what they say they're going to do, are consistent, and are trying to get better over the long term. To me, it's the same set of values. It's just that they live them in the dojo and outside as well.
You know, the word character came up pretty much for everybody, and I just want to add nothing to that other than the people who have the most skill, in my experience, are the ones with the most character. There's something about how those blend over time into a discipline that creates excellence. It's not a one-to-one, but it's a pretty darn, you know, especially as we get older. You know, Sensei Suino, you mentioned like somebody at 25, who knows? But over time, I'm not sure you get great over time without a little bit of character.
That was your Obi-Wan Kenobi moment, Sean. I love what you just did. You brought the notion of the path on martial arts, of self-perfection through martial arts and character together in a lovely way right there. That was a great summary of everything we just said.
Well, I appreciate that, Sensei Suino. Sensei Dauphin?
I have a second lesson for Sensei Suino. If you're not willing to be horrible at something first, you won't get good at it. So if you don't practice breathing your sparkling water, you're never going to get good at breathing sparkling water.
Well, I asked Stavros to allow me to mute myself because I'm going to be practicing the rest of this call.
Speaking of this call, if you are watching on YouTube right now, and it's either with us tonight or you're watching later, please hit that subscribe, hit that like. We love your support. We love being here with you and for you. If you're listening on the podcast while you're driving or baking or whatever you're doing, we support these endeavors for you. Please do both safely. But if you're here in real time, if you're on this Zoom meeting, that means you get to be a part of this living history that we're so proud to again be doing for you and with you. And we have a chat button at the bottom where you can throw your questions up for Sensei Seerattan or for us within the ballpark of what we're discussing with Sensei Seerattan. And we can't wait to fire those questions to him. And I just want to say that I'm here with Sensei Randy Dauphin, Sensei Nicolas Suino, Hanshi Gary Legacy, who are the co-hosts and creators of this show. And I was talking to Sensei Dauphin this morning, and we were just talking about pathways, and I won't get too specific about our conversation, but I just want to say this, that having a Sensei Dauphin, who asks us, and me in particular, as his student, to come and take this ride with him, such that I get to be in that back weird corner of the seat. There's not a day that goes by. I don't even mean a show a day that goes by that I'm not grateful to be brought along for the ride. Not just this show, but this martial arts journey with him and my other instructors on this call. So I just want to say thanks to my teachers for that, for letting me be a part, tail along in rooms I have no business being in Zoom calls I have no business being on. And I'm so grateful for that. Sensei Dofan?
Thanks, Sean. He's bringing that up because we were talking about how Sensei Legacy and Sensei Seerattan and I just spent 16 hours in my truck driving back and forth from Levy and took turns listening to each other tell stories. And that's how Punch Kick Choke Chat was kind of spurred. We lived it for 16 hours driving up to Levy, Quebec and back. And it was so much fun. But I'm here to talk about my good friend, Sensei Wilfreed Seerattan. He's actually all of our good friend. I don't want to be possessive of that. When I say mine, I mean our good friend. Sensei Seerattan is from Trinidad, and he immigrated to Canada, and he's made Canada much better by coming here. It's a much better country having a person like him in it. I am a respecter of education, so I always like to point out when people go to school, and he got his electrical construction diploma and maintenance at Central College in Toronto. But in addition to the instructing karate and being an electrician, he's now an IT guy like me. And he's actually also a personal trainer. So if you need help with any of those things, maybe not the electrical work, but go see him if you need help with that stuff. He started training when he was 17, and he achieved his Shodan at the age of 21. Today, Sensei Seerattan is a 6th degree black belt in Shotokan Karate under the JKA, the Japanese Karate Association. He's a multi-time Team Canada representative and multi-time world medalist in both kata and kumite. He's also a person who inherited his dojo and took it over from Sensei Gary Hails, who's a former PKCC guest. And these parts are easy for me to write Sensei Seerattan because I know you really, really well. He's like Sensei Copeland. For me, I've known him for my entire martial arts career. For as long as I've been in martial arts, I've known Sensei Seerattan. I want to point out that most recently, Sensei Benson and Sensei Seerattan have a rubber match coming up in February because they've competed against each other 2 times now. And it was 5-4 once and then 5-4 the next time. And they're 1-1. So we're looking for the king of the hill here. Sensei Seerattan is a cat lover. You might see Gerald running around in the background at some point. I've known this. If you see him on social media, he sends out Christmas cards to everybody with him and his cat, and I love it. You know how we know we're friends, Sensei Seerattan? We have 100 friends in common on Facebook. And if the social network says that, then we must be friends. But in all seriousness, he's come to our martial arts camps. Sensei Seerattan is actually trained with Sensei Legacy's instructor, Sensei Sandoval. We've been to his dojo. He's been to our dojo. We've taught at the same seminars. We've taught seminars at his school. This is a tightly knit friendship over many, many years. As a sensei, this guy produces great students. When they come to our tournament, they win. They win at the highest level. But as he said, they also have great character. When you talk to them, they're very nice people. They're very respectful. They embody what he teaches. As a competitor, this guy's a terror, man. When him and his students come out and do synchro kata, they win. When he comes out and does kata, he wins. When he comes out and does kumite, he wins. He comes to our tournament every year for like over 30 years. He brings his students. He's one of the people that I don't even, when you get tense about promoting a tournament, I'm never worried about Sensei Seerattan. I know he's coming and I know he's bringing people and I know he's going to take the medals home with him when he leaves. He's a good friend to all of us. Sensei Seerattan is a very good friend to all of us. He's one of those people that if you call and ask for help, you can count on him coming. And I just want to say one thing that I want to share a memory with you, Sensei Seerattan. We were in Dalewood Conservation Area. We had just trained with Sensei Sandoval, and a bunch of us were sitting around the campfire. I think Sensei Legacy was gone with Sensei Sandoval at that point, and everybody was making fun of me. They were saying, oh, you know, Sensei Sandoval must not like you. He was smashing you onto the ground, and he was twisting your arms, and he was punching you, and he was hitting me. And I said, I really don't mind. And then quietly, Sensei Seerattan said, when a sensei uses you as an uke, they see great potential in you. And then everybody stopped teasing me. And so I never thanked you for that night, but I'm thanking you for that today. And that's my introduction for our good friend, Sensei Wilfreed Seerattan.
Thank you, Sensei Dauphin. Sensei Seerattan, let's go to you now. Let's get into your history. What was it like for you growing up, and what brought you into your first club?
I love sharing that story. And again, it's about what draws me to karate, what draws me to martial arts. And it's always been that hunger that I've been seeking. And I know there is this potential that human beings have. And I'm an explorer of that. So martial arts for me is a way to explore that potential that human beings have, that science can't really tap into. So I found a place long when I was 17 years old. I was looking for a place, but even before that, I had this urge to do martial arts, but I just couldn't find where to go. That's when I met Anthony Sidney. Anthony Sidney, a student of Sensei Hanshi Legacy, and he was at our house actually because he had married to my mom's cousin. So he was there, and we were chatting, and he said, you would be an excellent candidate for karate. You should come and train with me sometimes. And then, I got the excuse, well, I really want to, but then he said these words to me. He says, if you want something really bad in life, you'll find a way. And every single day, these words resonate in my head every single day from then on to now. And I've never made an excuse since then. And I've looked, if I want something, I'll look for it. Because if we can want things and it won't come to us, but if we look for it, we will find it eventually. So I looked and I found a place that was actually a community center in our small town. I'm from a small village in Trinidad. I went to this, but it was so intimidating. I went once and I looked at these guys training. I want to do it, but these guys look so intimidating. So I asked a friend of mine to go, hey, you go with me, let's go do karate. And we both went, and we both went in, and we signed up. And he lasted 2 weeks. Because he was walking really stiff every morning. He said, I can't do this anymore. I mean, for many of us, the first few times for training, that's what it was like. Can you endure? Can you endeavor? Can you keep it training? And I just needed a way in. Once I was in, that was it for me. I just started like this. I was one of the instructors called me once. He says, Wilfred, you are like a sponge. I said, huh? He said, when a sponge, it gets dipped into water, absorbs everything. He says, that's what you are like. Oh yeah. Well, I want to learn. I wanted someone to teach me. So that was my way of getting into it. Once I got in, that was it. I just wanted to learn as much as I can. I read all those black belt magazines. And remember, I didn't have access to a lot of outside instructors from the islands. So most of the information I was getting is from magazines. And those black belt magazines were very popular at the time. And reading about these masters from Japan and Mr. Kanazawa and, all those guys, Tanaka. And it's very inspiring reading and seeing demonstrations and on TV and so on with these masters. I eventually wanted to, connect with them if there was a way that was possible. There was a lot that I wanted to do. However, I was confined to this dojo. And what is the really great things about this dojo is they trained really, really hard. The kata was terrible, but those guys, they were big and they just liked fighting. So I used to practice kumite with the big guys. and they would just toss me all over the place, you know. And that's why I learned the kumite. So now it doesn't matter who I face in the kumite. I just go for it, and because I have this experience of fighting these guys when I was nothing.
So let's break that open a little, Sensei, because we all know how excellent you are at kumite, but also you talked just about, you talked even in your first answer when we started chatting about character and about what another person has. And when you talk about this endure, I wrote down the word endure while you were talking, and the idea of no excuses. But not everybody who would have gotten the same lessons as you would then still be able to endure. Not everybody who got the same lessons would go, fine, but no excuses. So what do you think it is either within you, or what do you think it is about how you were taught? And how could somebody give that to their students who are maybe having trouble enduring, or maybe having trouble not making excuses?
Making excuses and enduring, it's a state of mind, and we have to first it's like waking up in the morning and brushing your teeth, and you're not even thinking about it. Putting on your gi and not even thinking, just going to train. Once you start putting thought into that, and you make excuses all the time, and eventually you just don't, you don't do it anymore. But I think some of us have that thing within us that drives us to explore and to become explorers in different ways. Mine is an explorer in martial arts, and I want to see what the human being can endure and how far I can push myself. So every year I give myself a goal, and I try to achieve that goal, each year. One of the things I wanted to do was train in yoga and try to understand how yoga and martial arts connected, because in the past they were one, yoga and Zen and all of this, and how it connected, and how it can transform into something a little physical that someone else can touch and feel. So I started training. I went to the seminar with instructor Kanazawa Sensei. He's one of the original JKA instructors in Japan. And he had left the JKA because his unique teaching abilities, ways of teaching, because he used to do Tai Chi. And I went to one of the seminars once when he was teaching in Toronto, and he did some magic with his hands. I couldn't figure out how he did it. And then he had a guy choke him up against the wall, and huge guy. And I was like, how is this possible? Where is this coming from? And he started to talk about internal energy and the katas. Now the katas are done in a specific way, but there's a lot of techniques in the katas that are meant to build us internally and different aspects of us. So he demonstrated a technique that actually strengthens your neck area in the kata Basai Dai. So I started training with Basai Dai a lot, until even to today, when I train Basai Dai, I always try to understand each movement even better, even though I've been doing it for 40 years. So I've trained in this way, in this method, and one day I wanted to test myself and see if it was working. So I decided, I don't know if you've seen the YouTube thing I did on the Danforth. There was this car festival on the Danforth where my dojo used to be, and they always asked me to do demonstrations at the festival. So I said to them one year, I said, I have this request. I don't know, if you would be interested in it, but let me put it past the committee and see if they would accept it. So I said, what is it? I said, well, I want to pull this car along the street, but I'm going to put the belt around my neck, and to demonstrate how strong my neck is. And the guy looked at me like, "You nuts?" Says, "Who does this?" I said, "Well, I would like to do it." in front of, you know, the public. And he said, well, let me speak to the committee. So he spoke to the committee, and they came back a week later and said, well, they think you're nuts, but if you can provide medical support and insurance, we'll allow you to do it. And I already had those things in place. I was just waiting for him to say it. So I said, I've got those things in place. Let's do it. So we set it up. And this was 2000. I did it twice, 2018 and 2019. So it was a. Did anyone ever seen the? Have anyone ever seen the YouTube thing?
Sensei Dauphin has, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So it's putting I tied belts to the back of the car, and then wrapped it around my neck, and then I pulled it about 3 feet. Very challenging, because it's the first time I'd ever done it, but I knew I could do it because I had really trained and learned how to you know, to develop energy and strength in my neck, so I won't pass out or my neck won't break. So going back to what drives me and how I want to explore karate is, how can human beings accomplish these things? You know, it's a physically and medically that, you know, because if you get hit right on the neck easily, you can actually break your neck. But how can someone do something like this? So this is what drives me every day, and every year I give myself a challenge to form so that I can build myself and make it more interesting. So every year becomes more interesting for me.
So let me break open just about that idea of the yoga, of the Tai Chi, of the energy work. And this is something we're definitely going to go around the horn on. What do you believe? We'll start with you, Sensei, and then we'll go Sensei Dauphin, Sensei Legacy, Sensei Suino. What do you believe, Sensei Seerattan, is the difference between valid internal energy work that actually provably builds strength or resistance to other people's strength, and just hoodoo, like bullshit that you watch on the internet where someone just does that and people fall down? Where is the line? I'd really love to know your opinion on this, because, you know, when I talked to Sensei Billy Hine 20 years ago, all he wanted to talk about was his Tai Chi training and how that was the next step in his goju. And it was there's so many masters we know who go this way. So where's the line where energy work is real and you can show it, and where's the line where you need a willing group of students who will fall at your will, but maybe not physics will?
Well, I'm still in the process of exploring. I'll be exploring for the rest of my life. But as far as I've experienced, there is a lot of that you know, stuff that's out there that we all know about, and anything that I see that I think has the potential to be valuable, I embrace it, and I try to understand it and practice it. So we do practice in the dojo. Whenever we practice balance and concentration and power, we practice a lot of it. We give a lot of effort and example. I don't just teach the techniques, but I prove the techniques and how they work and why they work. So this is a combination of internal energy and balance, and how you connect physically.
Thank you, Sensei. Sensei Dauphin, let's go to you. Where does internal strength, internal energy end, and where does hoodoo begin?
I'll be really short and brief on it. If you can do it to me and it works, then it does. If you can stand across the room and you can knock me on my ass, then I'm going to believe that that's a real thing. Hasn't happened yet. Anything that you do to me that works, that's real energy, and that's really working.
Thank you, Sensei Dauphin. Hanshi Legacy, let's go to you. Where does the concept of internal energy rubber meet the road, and where does it become somebody's fantasy?
Well, I'll start with Funakoshi. You're made of body, mind, and spirit. And therefore, we have to train on all those levels. Um, Buddha actually was the person who started the first martial arts exercises, because the monks needed to sit there for a long period of time to do real in-depth meditation, and they were getting fat and out of shape, and they couldn't stand the physical abuse of being that calm and sitting there that long. So it's all intertwined, right? So really, Buddha is the person who started the actual physical movements of martial arts. The other thing I'd have to say would be that your body and your mind are very, very strong, but the spirit is greater. And because of even the body, the spirit can't survive in the body. So you have to train that to be able to keep your spirit alive. Or it's not that energy is ever destroyed, but to be kept in you as a human being. So it's all, like Funakoshi said, body, mind, and spirit are inseparable. Therefore, you have to train it on all the levels.
Thank you, Hanshi. And Sensei Suino, let's go to you. Where does internal energy rubber meet the road, and where does it become fantasy?
I am pretty sure, happy to be proved wrong. I'm pretty sure anything that involves no touch is bullshit. It requires a willingness on both people's parts. And a lot of stuff that is touch is bullshit too, because it requires too much cooperation on the part of both people. Having said that, I have crossed hands with some people in internal martial arts, and I'm a skeptic, and been blown away by their ability to generate force. But that's not pure energy, right? That's energy manifest through the human body and the nervous system. So, like anything, there's some truth to it and a lot of bullshit to it. And it takes a little exploration and humility to really come to an understanding of that.
Thanks, Sensei. I do just want to add, when I was, before I'd ever found martial arts, I was in grade 13, so 1992. And Mr. Morton, our guidance counselor, I was just chatting with him about stuff, and we got into energy. And he did something where I put my arm out and he just talked me through it and did this. And like on my mother's ashes, he hung off my arm and couldn't bend it. And then when he sort of ended the thing, I couldn't prevent him from doing it with barely any strength. And then we reversed it on him and he did it. And to Mr. Morton, if you're watching, hit me up, DM me, let me know what the fuck we were doing. But it's what Sensei Dauphin said. I felt that, like I literally had a grown man hanging off my arm, and I'm only doing flies with 20 pounds. Like I don't have Cracker Jack delts here. It was riveting, and I don't know if it was a version of hypnosis or whatever, but I have felt internal energy that way. And I just want to say that I've never felt that version since, but there's a great line in the play Hamlet. There are more things on heaven and earth than are dreamt of in your philosophy. And there's a lot of stuff we haven't seen yet. Sensei Seerattan, let's get back to you. Let's get back to your journey. What got you to Canada? And if we're skipping over anything from that time you started in Trinidad and Tobago to get to Canada, please make sure you don't skip it.
Well, I think what's really something I'd really love to mention is I think we all have obstacles and challenges along the way, and some things that will test us, and to see if we can prove to ourselves that we can go to the next step on our journey. When I was going for my Shodan, we've all been through these, I'm sure, but I'm going for my Shodan, and the seniors in class, they tell me, yes, go for it. And I'm like, I don't feel like I'm ready, and you always feel this way, feel ready. And I trained really hard. I worked really hard. But the saying, you work really hard at doing it wrong, you get better at doing it wrong. And went for my test, and oh gosh, I worked so hard and I didn't pass. And I didn't even want to show my face going back to the dojo because, I'm thinking, I'm embarrassed. I embarrassed the dojo. Everyone's gonna look at me a certain way. And so I stayed away for a couple of weeks. And then, I decided to go back, and everyone's like, hey, where have you been? They welcomed me back, and another day at training. Like, oh, that's not such a big deal. But reason I mentioned that is shortly after I developed a knee infection, and it was so bad, I almost had my leg amputated. That's how bad it was. And I was in hospital for a while, and they couldn't figure out how I got the infection in my leg. But that put me off training for a few months because I couldn't walk. I had to be in bed for that time. And you get to the thinking of maybe I should choose a different path in life. Maybe this isn't for me. But that sense of exploration and strength that I wanted to find in martial arts and karate was still there, still very strong. Just my body was so weak. It was just dragging me down. But that's where we get back to this karate spirit. The karate spirit is what kept me strong. And 6 months later, I started walking and preparing again for exam, and I went, and I didn't expect to pass. I just went to it's like doing kumite. You just went, you just stand your ground, and you just do what has to be done. Yeah, I stayed away for a couple of weeks because I didn't think I passed, and someone came and said, hey, we haven't seen you in a while. By the way, you passed. Wow, that's okay. Shortly after, I left Trinidad, and still limping because my leg was still pretty bad, and moved to Canada. And this is the story of how I found the dojo. It was at Sensei Gary Hails. Like, well, where do I go? So I'm looking through the phone book, and oh my gosh, there's this tiny ad. It's like 2 lines long. And most of the other ads were so huge. So this guy can't afford to put an ad in. I'm sure he does good karate. and that was my connection with Sensei Gary Hails. His dojo was so supportive of me being there and being new to the country, and being very supportive. I'm eternally grateful for that.
So I want to break open something you talked about, and it's something that we might chat about a little, or maybe we'll just stick with you. We'll see. But you mentioned being very bad, like not doing it well. And we always talk about the idea of you're either getting better or you're getting worse. And if you're training in a way that you're not doing it correctly, we could argue that you're getting worse, but you have to train that way for a while before you can get better. So how did you at that time, or how does a student navigate putting all this energy into the wrong path and failing?
So one of my best teachers was a guy called Makiwara. Because they don't lie to you. Makiwara will never lie to you. You hit it wrong, he'll hit you back. Well, after I failed my test, I was determined to go back again. And they said that one of the things I was missing was what they call kime, focus in my technique. So I decided to build a makiwara. So I went into the forest, cut down a short tree because I'm in a small village, and I stuck it, gave it down, stuck it in between my mango tree and my banana tree. And that was, I built a pad for it, and that was my makiwara. That was the thing that I would hit every single day until it finally hit me. I'm learning something. I'm learning something in the correct way.
I like to do this every now and then. Dear listeners or dear viewers, you're on Amazon trying to find the perfect heavy bag, or the perfect gloves. This is a man who, between his mango and banana tree, built himself a fucking makiwara so that he went from not passing to passing, and he built the pad for it. You have no excuse. It's never been easier to train than today. And this is somebody who found a way to train without being able to order next day shipping from Amazon. I just want to say, Sensei, that's an exciting thing for you to have done. That's a montage scene in a movie. And Sensei Suino, when I mentioned people being crap at something and maybe going down the wrong path, your eyes really lit up. I know this is something we've talked about. Is there anything you want to add or chip in on that?
Well, as Randy alluded to earlier, I think you have to be willing to be crap at something if you want to be good at it. Very few of us are born great, but also it is possible, I think, to be on the path for a long time and discover that it's the wrong path. You know, we always talk about, we say things like, I either win or I learn. Well, that's true. But some people are stubborn and they tend to stick to the wrong path. So I don't know the answer, but I know that we have to have an open mind when we learn, when we fail, when we struggle, because not all the answers that we think we're getting are actually the right ones. There's a humility. That's a word that keeps coming up tonight. There's a humility to the process, right? To make sure that we stay humble and keep an open mind so that we can move forward in a direction that ultimately is good. It doesn't have to be the exact direction that everybody else has gone, but you have to, as I said to somebody earlier today, I don't always know the answer, but I want to know the answer. So, right, stay inquisitive, try, learn, and fail. That's what resonated with me. The idea that when we fail, it's not always a path to success, right? Sometimes it's just a path to more failure. And so the character or mindset is what kind of steers you from that.
Thanks, Sensei. And what I'm hearing in my own languaging, when I hear the word humility, I always think right-sized, and that means in touch with reality. And reality will show up sooner or later. And when it shows up, I can either listen or I can double down on my fantasy, which is, oh no, the judges were wrong, or oh no, if we had different rules set, then I'd win. And it's like, or you just aren't great yet. And that's okay too. And like you said, it might even be your teacher isn't good enough or you're not good enough. Sensei Dauphin, where do you go with this idea of being really bad and maybe for way longer than you're comfortable being?
Well, I always say that I wasn't really good at anything in karate in the beginning, except for two things. I could take a real beating, and I was a good student. And I think, yeah, got to have a good teacher or you fall into the trap of what Sensei Suino said. I've told this before, I'll tell it again because you never know who's watching. When I got my yellow belt, Sensei Legacy took my white belt off, put my yellow belt on. It was in a grading of like, I don't know, 60 people. And he said, you by far were not the best person in this grading. I might not even be paraphrasing. Those are probably his exact words. You by far were not the best person in this grading. But then he said, if I was going to pick any person in this room to get a black belt, I'd pick you. So I listened to my teacher. I knew I wasn't good, but he gave me that, but you have the potential to be good because you're a student and you train hard and you try hard. So if you keep doing this, then you are going to make it. So I think you got to have a good teacher. And then the second part of that, I would say, is a good teacher for you if you suck is that they give you corrections. They don't shy away from giving you corrections. And then you got to be the one to take that correction, think about it, and do the actual work of fixing it. Lots of people take their corrections and just go back to doing what they were doing before instead of actually working on the thing they were told to work on.
Thanks, Sensei. Hanshi Legacy, what about you? It can be real frustrating for people to be bad for a while, if not even a long while. Where do you go with that in terms of eventually being good?
Well, martial arts doesn't really accept everybody. If you don't have that tenacity, martial arts will pick you up, chew you up, and throw you back out into the street, and you'll be even worse off than you were before you came in. Because now, not only have you failed before, you failed at martial arts. So in order not to be a failure, you have to look at it as it's a learning process. I failed because I myself didn't prepare myself properly. So I never told anybody this before, but a lot of my friends know. I failed my green belt 2 times. I never even thought of quitting. It was just, when I look back, it was time. I didn't put in my time. So I guess I would have to say, if you want something bad enough, you will find a way. Am I not quoting you there, Sensei Seerattan? And that's totally what it was. If you want something, when I listened to Sensei Seerattan, I wanted this so bad, and I was not very skillful. I may have been physically tough and stuff, but I had no skills. It took me twice as long as everyone else.
Thank you,
Just,
Hanshi.
yeah.
Don't let me interrupt. Sorry, I was picking up on the process.
That's fine. Thanks.
Sensei Seerattan, let's go back to you. You're new in Canada. You're in this club that's welcomed you. Is it worth mentioning any major differences? Because you obviously loved where you were and stayed. So talk about that next little bit of your journey and how it felt transitioning from another country.
Yeah, so even in Trinidad, we belong to the JKA organization, which has reach, worldwide. And coming here, there was a JKA in Toronto. However, I didn't feel connected to it. I don't want to go too much into personal, but I didn't feel connected to it. But I felt connected to Sensei Gary Hails and his dojo, because I felt they really embodied the philosophy and the respect and the courtesy about what karate is about. So that's why I stayed there and I trained. And then I reached out to other JK clubs in Canada, where I connected with Sensei, now Sensei, Mr. Saiki, Minoru Saiki, and he heads the Canadian JK Federation. So I would travel to Ottawa sometimes to train with them. I remember some of the training was so intense. One time we were doing line drills and someone said to me, "Hey, you're bleeding." I go, "Huh? So you're bleeding?" I go, "Where?" Look down and there's blood streaming down my uniform. And I didn't read, the training was so intense, I didn't even realize, that someone had cut me open and I'm bleeding. I love that kind of training. I like to be in the mix of these things, and that's how I learn and that's how I grow. And they were so much more better than I was, and I felt, oh, this is a really great place for me to grow, because I can look up to these people and grow and become, more of what I was looking for in my life. Eventually, Gary Hails, he had retired, and I had taken over the dojo, and I continued, and I solidified my connection with the JKA in Canada, and I was very close with the sensei now, Sensei Saiki. And I've learned a lot since then. He has connected me. He's taken me to Japan. He's connected me with these masters I talked about at the beginning, where I, would see them in magazines and read about them. Now I'm actually training with them. They, not with them, but they're teaching classes and I'm training with them. I'm learning so much. I started absorbing as much as I could, because this is for me, every day is a once in a lifetime training. And if I'm training under someone who is a master teacher, I try to learn as much as I can and absorb as much as I can, and try to explore, everything, every part of what it means to, to be in karate and martial arts.
And we were curious, I personally got to spend about 6 months training with Hidetaka Nishiyama, who at a certain point was the most senior JKA member. Are there any JKA members you particularly found stood out? Anybody you've trained with or been in their classes? Somebody you'd want to just give a shout out to, or somebody who had that old school thing that you loved or wish people had more of, or any reflections at all, being such a part of such a hallowed and very like entrenched old school Japanese organization?
Yeah, one that's always on my mind, I tell stories about all the time, is Master Tanaka. I think that we had hosted a seminar once at the dojo in Toronto, and I invited you guys to come to it. So some of you came to it at the time. Anyways, Master Tanaka, he's still alive and he's in his 80s now. But I did a lot of my exams with him. I failed a lot of my exams with him. But training under him is a different. He teaches differently. He teaches from spirit, karate spirit first, then technique. Yeah, it's karate spirit, then the mind and the body, and he teaches how they all connect together. So one of the examples in we were training one day, and I was just black belts in the class. And he says, I need 8 volunteers. And the whole lines took a step back. they knew the kind of volunteer, that he was looking for. And I was always the one who was stepping forward, and so I stepped forward, and he looked around, he looked at me, and he goes, 8, I need 8 volunteers. And I stepped forward, and they didn't pick me, they picked 8 other people. And then they said, okay, we need 1 more. My sensei pulled out, I wanted to go, I went forward, but they didn't pick me again. So they actually picked Pete Depak was in the class as well. And they picked him, and they called him forward, and he's in the center. So he has to, there's a ring of 8 people, 8 guys, and he has to fight each one of them. And he has about a 1-minute kumite match, and then the next person attacks, and then another minute of kumite match. And I don't know if you've ever done this, but by the time you get to number 3, you wiped out. So what this is testing is it's testing your physical ability, your mental ability, and your karate spirit. By the time you get to the 4th person, you don't know what's going on anymore. And then you have to, your karate spirit has to take over. So when Pete got to number 4, he was totally wiped out. Like, they were picking him off the ground and putting him to stand up. And when he got to number 8, they took him straight to the hospital. He had a big gash in his arm like this, and he had to go get stitches. So, second round, Tanaka Sensei goes, okay, I need another 8 volunteers. And I stepped forward. Again, they didn't pick me. They picked 8 people. And it's okay, we need 1 more. I stepped forward and looked around, and my sensei goes, Wilfred, I'm always volunteering for stuff. Just get in the middle. So I got in the middle, and the first guy was a newbie. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna strategize. So I'm gonna fight each person. The first guy came in, I took him down, and I waited for him to get up. And I was like, yeah, I'm smart. I can take a breather. That's what I thought. And then he came in again. I took him down, and by the time he got up, I got under the breather. And then my sensei says, "Okay, don't sweep him." So he came in again, and we were fighting, and that was good. I had a really fun match for this one. The second guy was bigger than me, and I tried taking him down, but the guy just wouldn't fall. So him and I fought a little bit, and he really burnt me out. The third person burned me out even more. The fourth guy was a Shodan in karate, but also Shodan in the judo. So I thought, hey, I didn't know he was a Shodan in judo. I'm gonna grab him, when I get tired, and so I'm fighting, and then I just started burning, and I grabbed him really tight so he wouldn't move. And all of a sudden, I felt myself flying in the air, and I hit the ground. And I was like, okay. So I'm resting on the floor, and I'm thinking I can take a breather. So I felt someone grab me, pulled me up, and pushed me back against the guy again. And we started fighting again, and I grabbed him, and he just threw me again. Boom! I hit the ground. I got up really fast, and I had 4 more fights to go. I don't remember any of them, but I remembered finishing all the matches. I just don't remember the last 4. Even to this day, I can't remember I don't remember the last 4. And this is an example of his method of teaching. He teaches the karate spirit first, and how it connects to your mental training and to your physical training. If you can get through all of these 8 matches and still stand afterwards, you know, there's a chance that you will be a decent fighter.
I love that. And I've seen a lot of his videos online, and you know, the martial arts community can sometimes crap on each other in comments or keyboard warriors. I don't think you can find a negative comment on Sensei Tanaka's videos. Everyone just goes, wow. Like the commenters who are like normally BJJ or I would win at UFC or that wouldn't work are just like, yeah, that's good. Wow. They don't even know why they think it. That's awesome. Sensei, it is now time for your 10 questions. We ask that you answer impulsively, but then feel free to expand on that impulsive answer as you wish. Sensei Seerattan, what is the most effective move in your martial arts arsenal?
One of my black belts said, the best block is a city block. And it's don't be there. Don't be there. I've learned a lot in martial arts and karate. The best way not get hit is don't be there. Find a way to don't be there. And that's my answer for that question.
Right on. Who is the most influential martial artist in your life?
At the moment, it's my sensei from my Canadian sensei, Sensei Saiki. And the reason for that is I think he has a very good example on how to teach and how to treat people and how to treat others, and how to his selflessness in how he teaches and how he wants karate to grow is falls in line with what I believe in the philosophy of karate. So in that way, also he's such a high level instructor, but he doesn't. When you meet him, he just wants to be treated like, you know, the next guy.
Who do you think is the most influential martial artist of all time, and why?
Of all time, that's a big question. I've never really thought of that. You know, I've always liked Chuck Norris. And not because of his movies, is because he was actually in the ring and he trained in the way. So you know, I know that's a big question, but I think he's I've learned a lot from him in the way he does his martial arts, but because he comes from you know, an actual martial art background and in traditional martial arts, I respect him a lot for that as well.
What excites you most about the next 5 years of your training?
I have so many plans for the next 5 years. Again, it's exploring the physical abilities that we have and the mental abilities that we have, and how to strengthen my karate spirit. So in terms of my personal training, that's what it is. In terms of my personal my training in credentials, I hope to expand on my karate credentials so that I can have some higher legitimacy within the karate, within our karate.
Right on. If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you get there?
Yes, questions are throwing me off. Um, you don't belong here. No, I'm just kidding. Um, and that's a big question. I've never really thought of that. I guess that in life that I've treated people with dignity and respect and equality, and that's one of the things that you really strive for in life. That we all get a chance to show and to produce, and not to have someone put us down for the color of our skin or where we come from or our background and the culture, but to treat us, with the dignity.
Is there a martial artist, living or dead, in all of recorded history you would want to train with the most?
Well, I've always admired Funakoshi Sensei, and I think his philosophy has a lot, because I follow a lot of his philosophy and his teachings. I would really enjoy learning some of his philosophy in person. Why he chose, that way. Why he, some of the same questions that you asked, why he wanted to do this. So I think maybe meeting him and understanding why he went about doing what he did and why he wanted karate to become what it is would be some of the big questions.
If none of the martial arts you practice existed, what art would you want to try the most?
I guess Kung Fu. Going back to the old, actually, the original martial art name in India, I would really like to, practice some of that. That's a Kalari, because they embody a lot of the physical aspect of it, and the healing aspect of it.
What's the greatest benefit you've gotten from martial arts?
Meet people like yourselves, I think, is the greatest benefit, because it brings a whole group of people together from different aspects of life that you never would have normally met. And it doesn't matter what status that they have in life, but you get to connect with them and exchange ideas.
What is your greatest achievement and what is your greatest regret?
My greatest achievement, teaching. I have sharing. I believe in, when you have something and you have some abilities, we should share it. So one of the things I do is I teach special needs. I also have some students that I have one student in particular who is a special need, he's autistic. And it was very challenging teaching him. And that brought out a lot of my, it helped me explore my teaching abilities, because before I met him, I was teaching like everyone else. But since I met him, I had to explore different avenues of how I connect with someone and how I taught. And I've used those examples in my regular class to connect with my other students. He is now a black belt, and he did the same exams everyone else did. There were no excuses, because I didn't want any excuse for him. And he's now getting prepared to do his Nidan exam. In my opinion, I think that's the greatest part of my teaching. My greatest regret would, I guess, not starting karate at an earlier age. Because I look at it in such a way that there's so much to learn. If I had started earlier, I would have learned more. So I think that was the, but saying that, I believe that we start at the right time, because if I had started earlier, who knows, I would have never liked it and dropped out. But I started at the right time when everything was connecting for me, and that took me along the way.
Love that. That one does come up a bit. We have a saying in 12-step in AA, if somebody shows up 5 minutes late for a meeting and they're like, sorry, I'm late. And the saying is, you're only late to your first meeting. And everybody wishes they got there just a little earlier. Let's back up a little to, you talked about the community, and we're a community. So let's talk about how you and Hanshi Legacy became communal and respected one another enough to grow this relationship. How did you meet us?
Well, training with the Sensei Hails in Toronto, he would tell stories, and during you like you would stop in the middle of class and tell a story about something, and many of the stories that came up was about Hanshi. The one I remember most is about something about him punching a tree. And so when I was first going to the tournament in London, he would would tell us the stories, and then we go, and he said he wanted to introduce me to you. So I'm like thinking around, who is this guy who punched into the tree? What I was looking for, and he introduced us, and that's when he mentioned that I'm from Trinidad, and that's when you'd asked me the question about Anthony Sydney. And I really enjoyed that tournament because at the time it was like no gloves. It was hardcore kumite, really traditional stuff, and I felt very welcome. First time, I'm from a different country. I'm an outsider in a dojo, but I'm also an outsider coming into another group, and I felt very, very welcome. So every year, this was a big challenge for me to go and to compete.
Hanshi Legacy, what do you remember about meeting Sensei Seerattan and sort of bringing him into the fold, not even necessarily ours?
Basically the same. We knew that he was from Trinidad, and he knew Anthony Sydney, who was a student of mine for a while. And but Wilfred stood on his own. When he came to our dojos, he was always the nice guy, and polite, just the way you see him now. So what you see with Wilfred is what you get. As you know, you have to stand across from him a couple of times. He's a very good martial artist, good kata person. He's well read in all aspects of martial arts, kata, kumite, philosophy. It's just a pleasure to know him.
Right on. What about you? Yeah.
I don't think we ever physically, or we never competed at the same time or the same era, except I would have to say, yes, I do remember hitting a tree, and I do remember that in my day we fought without equipment. And when you get a punch in the face, you got a punch in the face. But things change. So.
Sensei Dauphin, I know you talked about a bit in your intro, but where did you come across Sensei Seerattan and get those first impressions?
At our tournaments, I just remember, unlike Sensei Legacy, we were in divisions together. He was a black belt before me, so I can never claim that I ever beat him in kata, and I definitely didn't. I just remember seeing him do Goju Hodai like just so nicely. So it epitomizes what Shotokan should be. Like when you see him do a kata, and I keep saying Goju Hodai because that's the one I've seen him do the most, but I've seen him do Basai. It's what Shotokan should be. Like if you close your eyes and try and think about what it is, that's what it is when you see it. The word I would use to describe him as a fighter is technically skilled and extremely patient. He almost does karate the way high-level BJJ players do BJJ. They wait for you to make a mistake. They play the defensive game for a really long time. they're patient until you make a mistake. And then when you make a mistake, you lose. And if you go in the ring with Sensei Seerattan, he's going to be really patient. And if you make a mistake, you're going to lose. That's what I remember seeing when I first saw him. And that's what I remember seeing last February when I saw him, just at a higher level.
Thanks, Sensei. Yeah, Sensei Seerattan, I think our match, not this year, but last year, was 13 minutes and nobody was waiting. And that was for
It was long.
It was long, and it was long. And again, I mean, you did mention that because I believe that was 2022. You got the gold, and I took the silver. And I just think it's so cool that you mentioned that as your greatest achievement, and that's awesome. And I think that's what you said in any case. But let's go back to when you're all right. That joke died on the vine. Sensei Sweet, help me out here. I want to go back to something you said in your questions answer about your instructor, and you said your teacher really wants karate to grow in the way you agree with. What is that way? What is the way that you want karate to grow, and that you agree with your teacher on? What are those principles?
To teach to whoever wants to learn, because karate should be taught freely. Well, not taught. I mean, you have to pay your bills and so on. But what I meant is, if someone wants to learn, and they want to come to your dojo and learn, it doesn't matter what organization they're from, or if they want to learn and they're respectful to your dojo, then teach, because that's what the philosophy of karate is about. Not picking and selecting. Well, I don't like you because you're from this dojo, and if you want to learn and you are respectful, come and learn. And this is something I've experienced directly from Hanshi. If I ask him to come and teach, there's no reservations. He just comes and teach. He doesn't think about any political things, or he's very free in the way he teaches, and shares his knowledge freely. And I really appreciate someone like that.
I love that. And then we will go a little around the horn on this, but Do versus Jitsu, I noticed, not necessarily versus. I don't want to make it a competition thing, but I noticed you choose Karate Do. Talk about the Do.
It is the philosophy, going back to Funakoshi, and why he chose this way, and why he converted from Jutsu to Do. I see a lot of parallels in the way I think, and the way my philosophy in life is that we have to try and learn to peacefully coexist with each other, and the Do helps us to find common grounds with each other, and seeking perfection, and improving our characters. If we really focus on improving our characters, then you don't have to worry about the person next door, because if everyone's trying to be a better person, and that's what the Do is about. It's continually improving and becoming a better person. And when you become a better person, your character, then your karate grows, or your Do grows.
Thank you, Sensei. Hanshi Legacy, let's go to you for this one. I mean, first off, let's start with what he was talking about in terms of teaching anybody. I know that's something that he just said you do, and we know you do that in terms of your teaching philosophy, but also I know that we've gone between Do and Jitsu in the time I've been with you. So talk about what you chose and why.
I just to touch on the teaching part is after a while, it's like code to us. We don't look at ourselves as being great, but as being servants, having an appreciation to what you have gotten from it, that you pass it on to other persons, so that during our time, the martial arts don't fail. That's what I find to be important on that. So as far as Karate Do and Karate Jitsu go, my outlook on it is that Karate Jitsu was born by the way of military. They used it to destroy. Their idea was to train and physically destroy the enemy. Like the white crane is really so dangerous that hardly anybody. That's why it's sort of kept a secret. You don't want to teach a young person to sever somebody's nerve, and people get in car accidents and they're in wheelchairs, so they can't use their arms because they sever the nerves. So that's what you mean to do. Like when you fight with the Miyamoto Musashi, you're not going to come out of it looking good. But when you do kendo, you can enjoy doing the art. And Karate Do is, it's good like health and self-defense, but you're not training to kill the opponent. You're trying to just defend yourself. Whereas if somebody attacked you, you'd ward them off, and if you're fighting more than one person, you may have to knock them out. So, and then there's a lot of philosophy and a lot of other things. Good health, mental health, physical health, and certain things that you learn to just be an ordinary good human being. And I think Karate Do involves more of that. I'm not saying that Wilfreed Seerattan couldn't knock me out very easily. He very easily could, but that isn't his goal. Whereas in Karate Jitsu, the word Jitsu basically means in preparation for war, to destroy your enemy. So there's a very fine line there, but the intent, I think, is the main thing.
Thanks, Hanshi. It's a really cool idea to break open. We haven't talked about it much on the show, and it's nice to do in a different but mad respect community. Sensei Dauphin, let's go to you to the teach everybody idea. When Hanshi said that was a bit of a code, we both just kind of did this. And comment on that as much as you like. And then, again, on the Jitsu or Do, if you wish. I know you don't set that for our club, but I'd love to know your thoughts.
So Sensei Legacy said something to me a long time ago, and I've seen him do it with lots of people. He said, look, Randy, it's the odds against making it students that are going to be the best students. The ones who are, when you first see them and you're thinking, hey, the odds are all stacked against this person to be getting there. I've had many of those students, Sean Benson, the odds against making it people who are now 5th degree black belts. The odds against making it students like Sean Flaherty-Pleward, who's a 3rd degree black belt now. The odds against making it like Tyler Watson, who's now a 3rd degree black belt. And they all had different reasons why there was odds against making it. And it was hard to teach all of them. All of those people were difficult to teach. And I have students now, 5 or 6, that are deep onto the spectrum. I love those kids, and I love teaching those kids. I can't wait to see them graduate from school. And when the other instructors in the Kitchener dojo say they're really hard to teach, Sensei, I say that's your problem as a teacher. That's their problem as a human being. You need to be a better teacher for them to get better at this. So that's where I take the teaching. Mm-hmm. On the Jitsu thing, I guess I'm just going to throw out some ideas. Because you can say Do and Jitsu and you can rally around those words, but I've said this before too. When parents come in and say, my son's a bully, can you teach them to not be a bully? I say yes. And then when they say, my daughter doesn't have much confidence, can you help her with being more confident? I say yes. And when they say, this child doesn't have much discipline, can you help them with that? I say yes. And they say, how can you do this thing? I said, I'm going to teach them how to fight, and I'm going to teach them how to fight hard. And when they get punched in the head, they're going to realize that doesn't feel good, and they're going to get more compassionate. And when they step back, instead of stepping in, they're going to get hit, and they're going to realize they got to be disciplined to take a step forward. And when when they don't have confidence, they're going to look in the room and go, hey, I just fought all of these people. It's going to be really easy to stand up in front of my class and recite my poem or whatever that thing is. And I think that path, if you look at the samurai, comes a little bit through jitsu in my mind anyway. Miyamoto Musashi trained to kill people. He was a great poet. He was a great philosopher, right? Which is the Do side of things. So, and I believe that while Sensei Seerattan calls his art Do, I believe jitsu is inside of him, and that he just chooses to wrap it up in that. But if you fight him, you're gonna know he's ready for war.
Thanks, Sensei Nofa. Sensei Suino, let's go to you for any of this you want to break open. I don't know in your naming if you think in terms of jitsu or do, and also, you know, just about the idea of teaching anybody. I know you agree with that generally as well, and touch on that a lot or a little.
I have a great story from today. You know, I own 2 vending machines at JMAC, and I was restocking the vending machines during kids karate. And one of the karate mothers was there. Her daughter came to us about 5 years ago, too shy some days to even walk in the dojo. And she had to take private lessons for 1.5 years before she could come to regular class. And even that, her first 1.5 years of regular class, she wouldn't talk to anybody. She wouldn't say anything out loud. She wouldn't count. She wouldn't yell. Now she literally will stand in there with the gear on and fight kids and punch and get punched and do all the things Randy just said, right? Like not back down. And about 6 months ago, she tried out for a TV baking show. This girl's 10 years old. And she went through 6 months of trials, hours long Zoom baking challenges, and has just gotten picked to go on a reality TV show in LA at 10 years old. And when her mom said, you've got karate, you know, dance, blah, 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 and cake, are you sure you want to do this? She said, yeah, Mom, I'm going to do it. Now, and I said to her mother, that is amazing. I said, I don't know if she got it all from martial arts. And her mother said, she got a lot of it from martial arts. She said, I'm so grateful to karate and to you guys for getting her to this point where at 10 years old, she can go to LA and for a week and be on a national baking competition. And she's got the balls to and the drive to do that herself. I mean, holy shit. If you want a success story in martial arts, there's your I'll teach anybody, and there's your success story. Amazing, amazing. And I'm sure we all have students like that. Incredible story. Jutsu versus Do. Randy got where I wanted to go with that, which is, you know, I teach and train judo, karate do, iaido, and jujitsu. I think the jutsu is in all of them. All my practice these days is in the do, right? All my practice now is in personal development, helping other people be better. When I train in combatives like jujitsu and judo, I play, I don't fight. But the jutsu's in them. Otherwise it's effete, right? It has no heart. It has to have a martial background. And as Randy said, the jutsu's in them. And it sure is a lot easier for us to turn back, right? To bring out the jutsu if we need it. But personally, I play in the other arena of personal development more than the arena of destruction.
Thanks.
The arena of destruction is so fun.
You know, we just have to shake hands and agree, and then we can move to that one.
We've just do you want to put a button on that topic at all, Sensei Seerattan?
Yeah, I really enjoyed that story. Sensei Seerattan was because it resonated a lot with a lot of the with some of the students that I've crossed paths with. And just you know, one story in particular is you know, I have a lot of young ones, and one day after training for about 6 months, one of the moms came to me and said, Sensei, I got a quick, you know, compliment for you. I said, yeah, well, sure, what is it? She says, well, My son was in JK, which is, he's 5 years old, and the teacher noticed something really strange when she was teaching in class. And I said, "What is it?" He said, "He was the only one paying attention." She said, "It's all from karate, because that's the only thing he does that's different." And I mean, we have a lot of stories to share about that. And within the do, there is the jutsu, which we work on. However, on the outside, we practice the do, and we close that door on the do. But within there, the jutsu is alive.
I'm so glad we touched on that, Hanshi.
Yeah, I like to. You are what you practice, for instance, and I agree with you all, except I was just making a difference between karate jutsu and karate do. For instance, a police officer has to prepare himself mentally to protect people. He may even have to shoot somebody and kill them. We don't learn that in a classroom, right? So going into a real war and getting to a fight in the street or in a dojo you're in a different place. You have to have a very strong mind. And when Miyamoto Musashi, how many faced someone, he had 60 fights and won them all except Genosuke touched him one time. He destroyed them all. Like when you're standing there, you're on a different level, in my opinion. When a soldier is out there and people are trying to kill them in a field, it's a different place. Police officers in a different place. That's what I mean by you're in a war. Yeah, how many of your students in reality would be okay with killing somebody? It's a very, very difficult place to be. I understand. I understand that there is an aspect of jitsu, but I'm just going to tell you a really quick story. Hope we have time. A professional football player, is coming home from a football game, and he sees his friends playing football in the field. He decides to go out and play football with them. Okay, so he goes, and the game's over. He was a professional football player. So the next year, while he's playing football, those same friends go by the football stadium. Do you think they can get out and go and play with the professional football players? Would they have that same skill? I don't think so, because one is just more severe or just a little bit more than the other. That's all I meant by karate jutsu. I understand that karate do teaches that same thing. Funakoshi, probably even Matsumura at some time.
Thank you, Hanshi. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to thank Robert Schlumsky, Justin Shea, Andrei Sedashev, Alden Adair, Jesse Villevitao, Sidney Dauphin, Josh Kitchens, Cristiano Landel, Daniel J. Holland, Judy Giuliani, and Stavros Stavroulis, who's with us tonight. We don't have PKCC without them behind the scenes. I always say time is real. Wow, I feel like we've been chatting for about 30 minutes, and we're just before the Sensei Suino turns me into a pumpkin time. So we're going to go around the horn. Hanshi Legacy, Sensei Suino, Sensei Dauphin, then me. And then the last word will go to you, Sensei Seerattan, as we discuss our time tonight. Hanshi Legacy, what do you want to say about our chat tonight?
Oh, it was great. It's good. Nice to run into Wilfred. I spent a little bit of time. Normally we're passing ways. It's good to review our past together. Nice to have you. Hopefully we can meet up and sit down and chat for a bit sometime soon. Thanks for coming on our show. I appreciate everything you did for martial arts.
Thank you, Hanshi. Sensei Suino?
Sensei Seerattan, we don't know each other well, but I've been around at a few tournaments. I've seen the last two the last two of your go-arounds with Sean Benson, which have been fun. And I use you as an example quite often in our Friday sparring class at my dojo, when my students always feel like they have to charge in even when the other person is charging in. I say, hey, there's this guy that I see at karate tournaments that fights Sean Benson, and he doesn't charge in, he waits, and guess what? He wins most of his fights. So you'll be happy to know that you're a positive example in my dojo, and you'll continue to be so as time goes on.
Thanks, Sensei Suino. Sensei Dauphin?
Sensei Seerattan and I write all kinds of notes. You gave so many good sound bites through this that I wrote a lot. So you said, it's not about winning or losing. It's about building your character. Really like that one. You also said something that really resonates with me. I know it resonates with everybody on this call. There's a potential that human beings have. I like to explore that. Everybody should explore that. They should all be thinking that way. If we look for something, we find it. Isn't that the truth, right? It's just so simple, but it's the truth. If you're not looking for it, you will not find it. And if you do, you're lucky, right? I just needed a way in. Then that was it. Exclamation mark, right? Just needed a way into that dojo. And then that was it. I feel very similar to that. That's why I wrote a lot of these things down. That when you teach how the technique works, how to do the technique, you prove the technique, not just punch the air, like you prove the technique. If you work really hard at doing it wrong, you get really good at doing it wrong. That's the truth. Again, what Sean said, you cut down your own damn tree to build your own makiwara so that you could practice your techniques and win. And then I was just thinking, I really don't like my neighbor. I wonder if he would mind if I went in his backyard and cut his tree down so I could bring it to my house and make a makiwara. And you said when you were training at the JKA that you like that type of training and you like being in the mix-up. I like that too. Sensei Legacy likes that, like in the trenches. I'm going to read a comment Sensei Copeland sent in. He said, Sensei Seerattan is a badass, fierce competitor and a good soul. I've fought him and he jokes with me right after we fight. I love the stuff you said about Kanazawa Sensei. And incidentally, for me, of all of the Shotokan people, he's the one, if I could have trained with a Shotokan person, I would have wanted to train with Kanazawa Sensei. But I do like that story you said about Tanaka Sensei and the 8-person that's just really, I could picture it in my mind because I know you so well. I could just picture you being there. I need a volunteer, step forward. Not complaining, step back. I need another volunteer, step forward. Like I could see you doing that. Most effective move, don't be there. I like that you said Chuck Norris was the most influential of all time. Because at first I was like, well, that's kind of stupid about all the other people you could have picked. But then I thought when you were talking about him being a classical martial artist and his fighting, I was like, yeah. And then I'm like, and also, even though they're humorous, there's more memes about that man on the face of the earth than any other martial artist. And all of them about being like the best martial artist of all time, better than anyone ever. And I was like, yeah, I think he's right. Like he could be, if not the most, one of, for sure. I really liked your answer about next 5 years. You just simply said, I have so many plans. I have so many plans, right? I was also happy to hear from a Shotokan person that they wanted to train with Funakoshi. I think that's awesome. That's the person, of course. It's so obvious and so right. Your biggest benefit is meeting great people like us. Well, we feel the same way. I do for sure. Yeah, I just really happy to have you on here, Sensei, and really proud to be your friend, and more so now after the last hour and a half and hearing more of your story. I know we'll see each other more. Like this has just been one more fun night in the chapter of our stories together as they unfold through life.
Thanks, Sensei Dauphin. Sensei Seerattan, you and I have faced off in the ring. I've got bruises from you. We've traded beautiful licks. You have made me a better martial artist. I believe in competition, but that's just one narrow aspect. You know, I still remember the first time we competed and just standing with you after. And I haven't competed near as much as you. And it was how you carried yourself. Nothing was different. We just had a deepening of who we were to each other. And I learned how to be post-competition from you that day, because we are trudging partners in that ring, and it's a really beautiful thing. And you know, that exploration of how does yoga and that energy apply to this, that's something I very much believe in. While I don't specifically do that yoga, that breath, I literally was doing breath work with my students last night, and the first time I ever did breath work with Hanchi Legacy in a class on the floor of Alt House, or pardon me, alumni. Anyways, to me, the through line of all that, when you talked about it tonight, I got really excited. I can't wait to see you in person. I can't wait to lace up opposite you. But I just want to say what a pleasure it is to have you help grow me as a martial artist. And I'm honored and grateful for it. And the last word goes to you.
Thank you. Well, first of all, thank you for having me on the show. And I really appreciate giving the opportunity to share some of my experiences and my past and my stories, but also connecting with all of you on this level. It's a dream for me to come true. But what I would like to share as I leave is that you know, I do a lot of competition, yes, but I don't. That's just a very small part of the aspect of karate and how I go with it. The philosophy is the main aspect for me, and this is how it connects with me and how I grow with it. And I'm still learning more about the philosophy and how to train with it. And this is how I teach from. So connecting with everyone on different levels, I learn so much. My goal is to learn from everyone and then take that and share it with others. And be respectful and be courteous and helpful. So in my way of teaching, respect is the most important.
Thank you, Sensei. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Mad respect to you all. We'll see you next week. Thank you, Senseis.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you, guys.
Night, everybody.
All right.